Released March 31st of 2016, Hyper Light Drifter is a 2D action-adventure game developed by Heart Machine. The game has the player control the Drifter, or the Magician as he is referred to in the Steam cards, as you explore the ruins of a once great technologically advanced society in an attempt to find a cure for the disease that is afflicting you. The game originally launched on Kickstarter in 2013 with the goal of raising just $24,000, to end up raising over $600,000 by the end of the campaign. Upon Hyper Light Drifter's release, it saw critical success with much praise directed towards the game's atmosphere, gameplay, art, sound design, and soundtrack, although some did criticize the game's abstract storytelling, as it was put. In this video, I will be giving my thoughts on Hyper Light Drifter. The game's mechanics and gameplay are mostly good. The combat is fun and fluid as you dash around, slashing enemies. Platforming was pretty fun too. I found myself especially enjoying the areas that mixed those elements of combat and platforming. Especially this one area, I'll put it up on screen right now. The level design complements this as well, as the underground areas are really fun, and I genuinely enjoyed clearing them and finding all the loot within them. Even backtracking through the underground areas and finding new things, like gears or modules, was enjoyable, which is honestly something I can't say for a whole lot of games. My only real gripe with the dungeons is some of the checkpoints within them, as sometimes they're very spaced out and it can feel really unfair when you make some decent progress through a room in a dungeon, and then you die and have to start that entire room over again. But luckily that doesn't really happen too often. The upgrades and weapons in the game that you can buy and unlock for your character are really cool. I genuinely loved all of them. Each upgrade is unique and fun, all adding something different to your experience in the game. Whether it's the ability to reflect bullets with your sword, the chain dash, or even just having more stim packs or ammunition for one gun. The way you unlock upgrades too is pretty decent, having you collect gear bits in order to assemble a gear bit pack, which is used to purchase upgrades from shops. Gear bits are obtained by either finding them in randomly hidden spots, killing certain enemies, or killing a boss, which drops 3 gear bits, one off a full pack. This system was definitely a breath of fresh air, as in most games of this genre you would have to grind for upgrades. Although I do like this system, I understand that it could easily leave a lot of people feeling cheated, as it definitely takes some getting used to. And if you aren't someone who looks out for secrets in video games, like random false walls, invisible platforms, or that little symbol on the ground, then it definitely puts you at a massive disadvantage, as you'll probably only be able to unlock like 3 or 4 upgrades by the end of the game. Guns are really fun to use in this game. I really like the variation between each gun and how they all serve a different purpose. Crowd control, blunderbuss. Accuracy, railgun, or impact railgun. Speed, pistol. Damage, Zaliska. As well, having the player gain ammunition by not picking up ammo drops or anything like that, but instead having them just randomly destroy objects or hit enemies, was actually kinda creative. I really liked it. Something this game did really well was its tutorial. The tutorial is as a game tutorial should be. It's short, introduces you to the basic mechanics of the game, and doesn't waste your time. That was a very good thing, as after that, the game pretty much just lets you explore its world at your own pace, giving you the freedom to explore each zone in any order you'd like, excluding the South Zone, which is locked until you complete the other 3 zones. In every playthrough of this game, I found myself always exploring the zones in a different order. And this is because even though each of the first 3 zones are the same in terms of difficulty, they all provide a different challenge, with different enemies, obstacles, and of course a different boss. Speaking of the boss fights of each area were all really fun. Each boss felt unique and different from the last, with different moves and attacks, giving you a new challenge each time. And the final boss felt like each previous boss rolled into one on steroids. Although, that is kind of why I would say the final boss is my favorite boss. Usually each area in the game has one boss, although the South Zone goes all out and has 4 bosses. Difficulty. While Hyper Light Drifter is a pretty difficult game, even on its normal difficulty, it is never really unfair. Although you will die a lot, you will always know that you did die because you did something wrong. Usually when you die, you figure out what you did wrong, and you'll have it beaten in your next attempt or two. There's also a lot of upgrades which can be used to even the odds. Like if you get swarmed by enemies, a great upgrade is the grenade. My only major gripe with the game's mechanics is the mapping system. The game's mapping system, while it is sort of okay, can be very confusing, as it only displays your general location, as opposed to precise location. The mapping system definitely can work, but it takes some getting used to. And it also makes looking up tutorials for this game a lot more difficult, as if you're looking for an item and you look up the map location for it, it doesn't really tell you much. The game's atmosphere is mwah, chef's kiss. It's beautiful. The game's pixel art, whether it's the sprite work, areas, animals, even background scenery, is all beautifully drawn and well colored. I honestly really like the different color palettes of each area. It was nice. Honestly, looking at the pixel art, it really feels like they paid attention to every little detail of the game. The game's enemies and bosses are also all very well designed, and look amazing. Each boss looks very different from each other. On top of that, the game's sound design is just god tier. From every swing of your sword to every button you push and platform that appears, even just the ambience of some areas is amazing. It really brings this weird ruined techno-dystopia world to life. I absolutely loved the various different biomes and landscapes that they used in the game, whether it's the mountains of the north area, the ruins of the east area, the barren wastelands of the south, and the weird crystal forest of the west. Every area feels unique and fresh from the last, offering different landscapes, enemies, obstacles, scenery, and ambience, even different characters. Even the dungeons change with the area, with the dungeons featuring different decorations and scenery, whether books from the north, crystals from the west, water and lily pads for the east, and just pure tech for the south. Each of these elements tells its own unique story about the area that you are in, whether it's the more enlightened society of the north, the ruined forests of the west, the heavy technological experimentation taking place in the south, or the weird frog person takeover that happened in the east. All of these elements are weird and cool in their own right, and work to engage you within the world's story. The soundtrack. Holy shit, this game's soundtrack is perfection. It blends together so well with the world of Hyper Light Drifter, and it works to add extra life to the game and its world. The game's soundtrack utilizes mostly synthwave sounds to make its soundtrack, and the variety of the soundtrack is just great. One soundtrack might be relaxing or peaceful as you walk through an area, another may be unnerving or unsettling as you have a vision of judgment, and another might be fast and exciting as you fight a boss. It's honestly great. The soundtrack even by itself is just amazing. I honestly would be unable to count the amount of times I've listened to the soundtrack while working on something like schoolwork, a D&D game, or even just writing this review. The game tells its story through its visuals, as throughout the game, not a single word of dialogue is spoken. The game mostly tells its story through exploration, and when interacting with NPCs, a set of 3 pictures, which show you that person's story. I honestly think that this was a great approach to storytelling. as it allows you to better emotionally resonate with the world and characters around you, as opposed to just reading stuff from a line of dialogue. You learn more about this world from actually seeing the world than just by reading about it in a codex or hearing about it from a large wall of dialogue. It very much embraces show don't tell, and I think that's good, as it allows you to more actively engage with the story of the world, rather than just having it told to you. The game very much works in the regard of emotionally resonating with the player, because it is a very deeply personal game. I say this because it takes very heavy inspiration from the story of its creator, Alex Preston. Alex was born with a congenital heart condition, and because of this, has undergone several surgical procedures throughout his life in order to keep himself alive. He's required constant medical attention, as a simple sickness could very well be his last, and on a daily basis, he takes a large assortment of medication. Sadly, because of this, Alex has always been faced with the knowledge that he has less time on this earth than most. To most of us who don't suffer from things like this, myself included, we couldn't imagine how this kind of thing would feel. The kind of feelings that you would feel from this. And so, it's my belief that this game works in this regard, because Alex very much channeled a lot of these feelings of impending doom or dread when creating this game, which is mostly seen through the various cutscenes of Judgment, as Judgment makes quick work of you in a different way each time. Although Alex very much channeled negative feelings into this game, he also threw in some positive feelings as well. Feelings of joy, triumph, and intrigue. This game is an emotional roller coaster, as it is very much a reflection of life, with many emotional highs and lows, obstacles and challenges for you to approach, learn, and overcome. The game's story and storytelling works because it is personal, because it makes you feel something. It's about the feelings of its creator, who decided to take action and build this game, because although he may never get to grow old and may not live as long as many, his work is immortal. Alex very much did place himself into this game. As I played this game after learning about Alex's story, and as I reflect on the hours of footage I recorded, I realized that in this game, I wasn't playing through the Drifter's story, I was playing through Alex's story. The story of wanting to accomplish something, and do something good with a very short life that could very well end at any moment. The story of wanting to leave behind a legacy. This game is kind of why I look at video games as an art form. This game is a great example of why video games are an art form as legitimate as that of a painting, a film, a song, or a book. Video games can tell us stories that other mediums just can't. This is a great example of that. I mean, think about it. You wouldn't feel the same going through this story if you were reading it or watching it. The game actively engages you in its story, and because of that, you feel like you are the creator of the game. To an extent, you understand some of Alex's struggles through his art. And honestly, it's just beautiful, man. Most good works of art come from the feelings of its creator. Whether feelings of joy, laughter, hope, fulfillment, or sadness, melancholy, despair, or dread. Hyperlight Drifter works as a piece of art because not only is it really good, but it embraces a large emotional spectrum, as does life, bringing the player on a roller coaster of emotions. The game tells its story beautifully through letting you explore it and piece it together for yourself, or you can just look up a story summary video if you really want to. I won't judge. Not to mention, the game is all around just good fun, with great mechanics and beautiful atmosphere, music, and sound design. The game blends all of these elements together really well, creating an almost surreal experience. Honestly, if you haven't played the game already, I highly recommend it. It's about $28 on Steam and is worth every cent. I'd recommend playing through it at least once. Anyway, that's the end of my review. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments section below. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you're new to the channel, why not subscribe? Turn on those notifications so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter at JordanCS9 and check out my second channel, JordanCS2. But that's all for today, so till the next one, a very happy 6th anniversary to Hyperlight Drifter, and piss off.